Joy News Prime, as Burkina Faso registered its first set of cases of COVID-19, health authorities here in Ghana are stepping up surveillance measures to ensure any case that is discovered is quickly contained. Among the measures is a suspension of non-essential international travel by government officials and stricter surveillance at the country's teaching hospitals.
In places like Korle Bu, where we have multiple entry points, we have asked that they should create designated entry points, and for those entry points they must make sure that whoever is coming, whoever is to be suspected to carry the virus.
Authorities at Kintampo South District Hospital appeal to relatives of deceased accident victims to come and identify their bodies for burial, saying they will be compelled to bury them in mass graves after 2 weeks. There are concerns a rather high number of Ghana's water bodies contain fecal matter.
Out of 10, household water is also contaminated with E. coli. It means that you and I are consuming water that is contaminated with feces. You may talk about galamsey operations, but there are other operations which also contaminate the water.
CONIWAS wants government to pay as much attention to contamination from open defecation as it does to pollution from galamsey in business.
Ghana Pharmaceutical Chamber fears possible shortage of drugs as the world's largest producer and exporter of essential drug. India bans exports of some 25 essential drug ingredients.
Likely to be the shortage of this, and therefore maybe ask the government to find alternative sources of supply.
I'm Mr. Lion. Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Kokomlemle here in Accra with digital address GA0992539, where we're celebrating 25 years of fearless journalism in the defense of Ghana's freedom and justice. Stay tuned in. Health authorities in Ghana are reviewing measures put in place to monitor any incidents of coronavirus. It comes as Ghana's northern neighbor, Burkina Faso, registered its first cases of the deadly disease on Monday. Of the three countries sharing borders with Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire is now the only country without a case. Deputy Health Minister Alexander Aban is meanwhile urging the public not to panic over the confirmation of a COVID-19 case in Burkina Faso, explaining Ghana's health officials are on high alert.
The government is a concern to the Ministry of Health, and I believe it is the concern for every Ghanaian, because it sends a lot of shivers down the spine of everybody. So it's a concern to us. It's our prayer that we don't record a single case. But should that be, I believe that we have put in place enough measures to contain any outbreak or any incidence of that case, of that disease in the country. I would like to implore all Ghanaians to calm their nerves. Nobody should panic. We have put in place a lot of mechanisms to make sure that we immediately detect and contain any case that may occur. So we have had a series of meetings with the teaching hospitals, the regional hospitals, so that we would have proper designated areas for holding rooms and for treatment centers, which would completely be isolated from other operations of the various hospitals. So please, everybody should calm down.
The minister also announced mass screening at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital to ensure no case escapes the authorities.
One of the things that we have also done to make sure that we prevent people from coming in with that problem undetected is that in places like Korle Bu, where we have multiple entry points, we have asked that they should create designated entry points, and for those entry points they must make sure that whoever is coming, whoever is to be suspected to carry the virus, that is the protocol that we have set in place, so that once you are entering, they will have to check your temperature to see whether you are going to maternity, whether you are going for x-ray, whatever that you're going to do. For as long as you are entering the hospital, they have to check these things so that if you are found to show the symptoms of that case definition, you can be put in the isolated place or the holding room, and the various protocols will be taken to be sure that you are negative. If you are found to be positive, then you would then have to be taken to the treatment center. So I believe that the earlier suspected incidents that happened in Korle Bu became very rude wake-up calls to us. And on the heels of that, we have been able to put in place a lot of things to make sure that we contain it. At this point, I would plead with all Ghanaians to calm their nerves and keep praying for us. We would be able, with the help of the team that we have assembled, to deal with this matter.
President Akufo-Addo has also temporarily suspended all foreign travels for all public officials as part of measures taken by government to limit the spread of coronavirus. In a circular issued by the Chief of Staff, Akosua Fremont Osei-Opare, and addressed to all sector ministers and their deputies, regional ministers and their deputies, all metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives and all heads of government agencies, she stressed that only essential and critical foreign travels will be considered and thereafter approved. The directive, together with other measures, according to the statement, is intended to protect the general public from contracting the virus. Now, contamination of the country's water bodies through open defecation affects more Ghanaians than illegal mining, also known as galamsey. According to the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, the situation is quite alarming, as 8 out of 10 water bodies sampled were found to contain fecal matter. Vice Chairman of CONIWAS, Atta Ahin, in an exclusive interview with Joy News at the maiden monthly environmental dialogue series, said equal attention must be paid to the issue of contamination. There's more in the following report.
I'm just squatting small.
Squatting small. What is squatting small? Are you defecating?
You say?
Are you defecating? Are you shitting?
No, yes, I'm shitting small.
Excerpts of a Joy Clean Ghana report in which the team finds someone openly defecating at the beach. The practice is typical in a country where, according to Vice Chairman of CONIWAS, Atta Ahin, a staggering few have access to appropriate toilet facilities.
Only 21% of the population of Ghana has access to improved toilet facilities. The rest don't have.
Atta Ahin argues, though illegal mining has been widely blamed for polluting Ghana's water bodies, open defecation has more domestic consequences.
The Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey 2017-2018 report indicated that 5 out of 10 point sources are contaminated with E. coli, and 8 out of 10 household water is also contaminated with E. coli. E. coli is simply fecal contamination. So it means that you and I are consuming water that is contaminated with feces. And that is a serious thing. So you see, you may talk about galamsey operations, but there are other operations around this practice which also contaminates the water. Of course, when the people go there to practice this, galamsey activity, where do they defecate?
The first Environmental Dialogue Series 2020 was a joint effort by the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, CONIWAS, and the Environmental Service Providers Association, ESPA. The outfits called for government to better empower private sector participation, especially through funds and legislations. They believe both factors are vital in improving the sanitation woes of the country. Assessing efforts made at combating open defecation over the years, the parties revealed the nation has not made much progress, if any, and called on the president to intervene.
We call on government to possibly declare a presidential special initiative for ending open defecation, because it is a killer. Every year, more than 3,600 children die as a result of diarrhea only.
PSC Nanaya Osafo, Joy News.
Elsewhere, the northern region town of Nabuli is grappling with chronic shortage of water, compelling hundreds of residents there to haggle with livestock for water from the only pond left in the community. Many of them fear an outbreak of waterborne diseases as the dry season in northern Ghana reaches a climax around this time of year. Joining us, Justice Beidou has just returned from the community. Here's his report.
A long walk in search of water. These are the children of Nabuli on their daily ritual. Along with them, they are donkeys. The journey is far, and many times it takes these animals to make it.
Unless you look for motorkin or donkeys that will fetch this water for you.
These children are the ones paying the price for this community's chronic problem with water.
When you drink, your stomach will pain you. It doesn't have water. You better drinking this water.
This is the only place where the over 1,500 people who live in Nabuli get water from. Cattle drink from here too.
Look at this dirty water lying down here. If you fetch, if you look inside, you still see a lot of things walking around inside the water, but you have to drink it. Now we have some old men and then old ladies in town, and they cannot walk to this place. They have to buy.
Sometimes it dries up, and when it does, things get worse.
Look at how the children are suffering about the water. Some of them, because of the water, they don't go to school. But if they don't bath and go to school, the teacher will get them away to go home and bath. And you go house, you not get water to bath, you'll stay in the room, you won't get out again. Most of them reach about 2 weeks. They don't know, they don't go to class and learn 1 or E.
The water looks brownish, extremely dirty, with broken pieces of tree branches floating on it. Nabuli is not alone. Hundreds of other villages in this part of Ghana are living with the harsh realities of thirst for water. When will they have something to quench that thirst? No one knows. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Nabuli, in the northern region.
Indeed, Nabuli is not alone. The Nankpanduri Business Senior High School in the northeast region also lacks access to running water. The over 1,000 students share an algae-infested stream with goats and pigs. 2 boreholes have also broken down. The paramount chief of Nankpanduri, Na David Bila Kansuk, is making a passionate appeal to government to provide the school with potable water. Jojo Kobana has the details of the story.
The paramount chief of Nankpanduri in the northeast region, Na David Gobila Kasuk, is locked up in a meeting with elders of his community. They are discussing developmental issues affecting his people. Many of his people lack access to potable water, but the plight of students of Nankpanduri Business Senior High School worries them more.
We have a few boreholes dotted around, but right now most of the boreholes are not serviceable. They are gone bad. And so we resort to drinking from the stream. I'll be happy if you can go down there and see the source of water supply to the Nankpanduri community. We are drinking from the stream because these boreholes are not working. So you can have a ride down there, and then you see our source of water supply. Make me so frustrated.
So we took a drive down the stream to find the source of his frustration. Students marched from their school down to the stream to fetch water for drinking and also bathing. They have been relying on this water for many years due to lack of running water in the school. The borehole in the school, which served over 1,000 students, has broken down, and so all the students, including teachers, rely on the stream. they remove their sandals and dip their gallons into the stream. Deep down the water are slimy algae blooming. Human activities around the water also pollutes it further. Animals also quench their thirst here. Some organisms also float on the surface, and just close by, students also drink it. The students say, although they are unhappy with the source of water, they have no choice.
Animals too are drinking it, and maybe if you are coming to fetch the water, you can easily fall inside and they will kill you.
So this water, do you boil it before you drink?
No, we just take it like that.
Why?
Because we don't have where to boil it.
Us are drinking, like pigs. They will come and swim inside the water and we are taking it. We come and meet our past seniors. They were all using this water, so we also joined them to use it.
They recount falling ill because of the water they consume.
Sometimes you'll be vomiting down your stomach. Even one boy in our class, today we were having social paper, but he was not able to write. That his stomach is paining him.
Because many residents of Nakwandui lack water, business-minded people now pump and transport the water for sale. The school kitchen also uses water from the stream for cooking. The kitchen used to run on a mechanized borehole, but the system connection has been destroyed following construction works, so all the water tanks are empty.
It will be difficult to boil water in the kitchen for them because of the equipment, and their number too is large. So if we have enough equipment, yes, we can do that, but now we have less equipment to use.
The senior housemaster, Amadou Timothy, recounts that the agitating students almost destroyed his office because of lack of water.
So during the rainy season, it rained and the water was polluted. So the students said they wouldn't want that water to be used for their meals. And the only source of water was the mechanized borehole that serves the kitchen. And there was a weak lice off. So we couldn't get water from that mechanized borehole. So that particular fateful day, they had no water for supper. And we agreed that they would take gari, and they said no. First they agreed, and later they said no because they would use water for the gari. So they didn't understand administration. So finally they had to come and chase us with stones. And finally even burned my office, the senior housemaster's office, because they said if I had been here earlier, they could have gotten water.
Amadou Timothy is appealing to government to construct many boreholes, mechanize and link them to the school.
We have been running almost every night into the hospital. And we had to send a lot of students complaining of stomach ache, others they vomit, others run diarrhea, and we had to run them to the hospital. If we have water, enough water, we know within the school the water cable is very low. And if we can, but in town is better. So if we can get some of the town boreholes mechanized and pipeline into the school, it will help the students from going out of the school.
Until then, students will be competing with animals for drinking water. Jojo Kobna, Joy News. Charlie.
Well, joining me in the studio right now is Patrick Apoya. He's with the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation. And we just watched 3 stories on access to potable water. And is the country making any headway at all as far as providing water to the most vulnerable is concerned?
Yes, the country will, in policy and in practice, they seem to be making some effort or expressing some concern. But our observation and evidence to date suggests that the very vulnerable people, they are really not being touched by whatever the state is investing in its people. Yeah. And when I say vulnerable people, we are not really looking at the very remote communities. The communities that you are seeing, they are not very remote. I mean, they are actually, by community water and sanitation standards, they are small towns. And if these people are in this kind of situation, then you can imagine those that you really call remote communities. Their plight, you can't even look. It's even worse than what you're seeing now.
What ideally should be the plan for such far-flung communities, especially because they can't be reached by Ghana Water, as in supplying lines to them? So how do we provide them with potable water?
The national strategy for addressing those communities, which is managed by the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, stipulates that every community should own and operate their own borehole. And that's why government provides a borehole for you. But once you get the borehole, you're supposed to put mechanisms in place where you charge for the water, and then you use the proceeds from whatever you get to pay for spare parts to maintain them.
Right.
Now, the structures over the years have disappeared. Some were trained over 15 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The people have either died, moved, and there's no effort to retrain. So it's a policy failure. The second thing is the policy itself, there's a weakness in the policy itself. Because the entire eastern part of Northern region, from Tamale all the way to the northeast region, to the Nanumba districts, all that area is on a zone we call the Horseshoe Zone, which is a zone that has a certain type of rock that doesn't allow rainwater to percolate. So you don't have groundwater at all. Anytime it rains, it just runs away. Now those people, you will only be lucky to have water in some places, but most places will not have water. And if you tell me that if I don't get water in my community, there's no other option apart from a borehole, then it means those communities are condemned to life forever. That's a policy failure. What can happen in that situation is there are some pockets that you could get very high yielding boreholes that you can even mechanize and serve people that are 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers away. Unfortunately, because communities have to own their system, there's nobody that can manage that kind of extension. So it is my community, it's my water. Why will I send it to another community? So again, there's a policy which is working against the people again. Now, fortunately, Community Water and Sanitation Agency has taken that up. It's this particular challenge that Community Water is initiating the kind of reforms that they're initiating.
All right.
That rather than saying community ownership, they become the utility for the rural communities. Then they can take up these issues where they be able to extend water that might be available 5 kilometers away to communities like this, where you can find the water right in the community.
So having talked about these far-flung communities that actually don't have access to potable water, there's also the issue of those with potable water in the cities, who it turns out that the water they're drinking is contaminated. How serious is this situation? Because you're talking about a situation where 8 out of 10 communities or households sampled, they had their water contaminated.
That's correct.
That's quite serious.
Yes. And it is very serious. And when if you know what E. coli means, it's the best indicator to tell you that this water has been in contact with fecal matter. That's the simplest way to explain the meaning of fecal contamination.
And for you, or for Konuwas, it just simply means that this is as a result of open defecation.
Open defecation, and also some weaknesses on the side of our utilities. First and foremost, if you go to Ghana Water Company, their treatment sites, the water that they treat is clean, is 100%. You can't see any form of E. coli. The chlorine is okay. But as it travels along the route, in the cities, the way our pipes are exposed, the one we call the spaghetti lines, once there's a break, there's a possibility that you have intrusion of gutter water, sewage water, into the pipelines. And once it enters, it's constantly contaminating your water. And that is what is causing up to the 60%, 70% of contamination in our households. The second problem is Ghana Water, 6, 7 years ago, when the management was on the Aqua Vitens run, if you remember that management contract, there was a conscious effort to monitor certain indicators. And one of the indicators that was being monitored on Ghana Water was a parameter we call residual chlorine. And the residual chlorine is a measure of excess chlorine that should travel from the source of treatment all the way to your home. That just in case there's some contamination, that excess chlorine will knock off your contamination and you'll still have safe water. For all the 5 years that Aqua Vitens Run operated, Ghana Water Company consistently failed on that particular parameter. And there's no reason for us to believe that currently they're addressing it. And if you know that...
Have you checked with them?
Right now, I would say for the last 5 years, we haven't checked. The kind of report I'm talking about was an independent technical auditor.
Yeah. In which case, it would be unfair to say that the water is...
No, we are not saying it's contaminated. We are saying Ghana Statistical Service. The statistics that we are quoting now is coming from Ghana Statistical Service. It's not coming from an NGO. It's the state authority which is responsible for research. And the last nationwide survey that they did, that we call the multi-cluster indicator survey, examined drinking water quality.
Right.
And it is from them that indicated that 8 out of 10 households who are using safe water, 6 who are using safe water are contaminated by E. coli.
This
and
is
the only
5
way
years
that
ago,
it can happen, no, this is just 2 years, this is just 2017, 2018,
right.
This research. And for me, the only 2 reasons that can account for that in an urban area are these 2 causes.
All right, so we are in our homes and we have the water coming to us. Yeah. How do we ensure that we don't end up drinking this contaminated water? Or what do we do to our water then?
First and foremost, and it should also, everybody should also be concerned about that. There's a whole lot of behaviors we need to change at the household level. Even in Europe, they make an effort to still do what we call the point of use disinfection. So the simplest one are the chlorine tablets, but people are even say that is far-fetched. There are very simple filters, whether they are clay filters, simple boiling, that you can use to purify your water. You cannot just take water from the tap and drink straightly. There are Veronica buckets that you may think it is not safe, but there are some of them that you can put filters inside, and it can filter your water very properly for you. That is what we encourage everybody to do. For me, if you can do that, it is still better than even going to buy sachet water. Sachet water, it's not all of them that are safe. I'm not going to spoil anybody's business, but it's not all of them that are safe. If you can take your water from the tap, do your treatment using these cheap methods.
By yourself.
By yourself. Then we are sure of a healthier population than what we are doing today.
All right, thank you very much. Patrick Apoya is with the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, and he has been talking to us about the water that's running through your taps and the access and the water that you end up drinking. Now, we're taking a break here on Joy News Prime, but still ahead in the bulletin. Authorities at Kintampo South District Hospital appeal to relatives of deceased accident victims to come and identify their bodies for burial, saying they will be compelled to bury them in mass graves after 2 weeks. And in business, Ghana Pharmaceutical Chamber fears possible shortage of drugs as the world's largest producer and exporter of essential drugs. India bans exports of some 25 essential drug ingredients.
Shortage of this, and therefore maybe ask the government to find alternative sources of supply.
Stay tuned in. We'll be back in a bit. All right, time for business now. Sandra is here. Hello, Sandra.
Hello, Israel. This coronavirus thing is wreaking a lot of havoc worldwide. And the worst part is that the Pharmaceutical Council is afraid, or they've expressed concerns that if nothing is done immediately, we might have shortage of drugs, which is quite serious.
Well, there's shortage of everything, raw materials and spare parts and everything else. You take it over.
All right, so celebrating 25 years of joy, my name is Sandra Esinam Apene. Let's do business. As the coronavirus continues to wreak havoc on global economies, Ghana's Pharmaceutical Chamber is worried about a possible shortage of drugs. This is because the world's largest producer and exporter of essential drugs, India, has banned the export of some 25 essential drug ingredients as it braces up for an outbreak in India. Chairman of the Chamber of Pharmacy, Harrison Kofi Abutiati, tells Joy Business that developments could largely impact local pharmaceutical firms in the long run. Charles Aite has more in the following report.
The Pharmaceutical Chamber of Ghana says the coronavirus outbreak could have an impact on Ghana as it relies heavily on China and India for drug ingredients. The coronavirus has reached astronomical levels as economies like China and Italy remains on lockdown. So far, India, a global hub and supplier of essential drug ingredients to European and emerging markets, has placed a ban on the export of essential drug ingredients as the country prepares to stock up against a possible outbreak of the virus. Speaking to Joy Business at the media launch and unveiling of a logo for the 2020 Ghana Pharmaceutical Expo, Chairman of the National Executive Council under the Chamber of Pharmacy Ghana, Harrison Kofi Abutiati, explained the ban has dire implications on the local industry.
China has a big raw material setup, and therefore if it hits that hard, that could be a problem.
The restricted drugs include paracetamol, one of the world's most widely used pain relievers. Meanwhile, Harrison Kofi Abutiate has urged pharmaceutical companies to alert government to any imminent shortage.
If there are going to be shortages, they should warn people, they should warn the government, or put an alert that there's likely to be the shortage of this, and therefore maybe ask the government to find alternative sources of supply.
Meanwhile, the Chamber of Pharmacy Ghana unveiled a logo for the 2020 Ghana Pharmaceutical Expo, which will center on making Ghana a pharmaceutical hub within the sub-region. Here is Deputy Minister of Health, Alexander Kofi Kum-Aban.
The Ministry of Health is looking forward to a successful GAFEX 2020 that would create the needed networking environment for the key stakeholders, both from the international and the local pharmaceutical industries.
The expo is under the theme Making Ghana a Pharmaceutical Hub, Opportunities and Partnerships.
Away from that, mobile money operators and financial technology companies have up to December 2020 to meet their minimum capital requirements. This was after the Bank of Ghana has agreed with stakeholders to extend the deadline from the initial June set date. The central bank says the decision is to ensure all operators meet the requirements. More details in the following report.
The Bank of Ghana last year announced June 2020 as a deadline for all mobile money operators, including telecom firms and banks engaged in mobile money transactions, to meet the minimum requirement to lose the operating licenses. The requirement forms part of the regulation process as prescribed by the Payments and Settlements Bill, which was passed last year. Speaking at the Mobile Technology for Development Conference in Accra, Head of Payment Systems, Dr. Seto Amedeku, said the central bank has revised the requirements and also extended the date to December 2020.
All fintechs are to use 50%, or existing fintechs are to use 50% of their existing assets, verifiable assets, as part of the paid-up capital, and 50% to be held at the Bank of Ghana. In addition, the governance framework and infrastructure requirement deadline has also been extended to December 2020.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who launched the conference organized by the Ghana Chamber of Telecoms, applauded efforts by operators to digitize the economy. He advocated the yet-to-be-introduced universal QR code system and says it will make payments for services easier.
We need to now move in that direction where we are using this mobile technology to actually effectively make Ghana a cash-light society at the merchant level. I think this is where we are going. And Ghana is, of course, when we launch it in 2 weeks' time, we will be the first country in Africa to have a universal QR code. First country. QR codes are here, but they are not interoperable. And we are bringing in together the standards that will make it interoperable.
The two-day conference brought together all telecom sector players to deliberate on ways of advancing the digital drive. Ibn Sabute's report for Joy Business.
The managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Kwame Agyemang-Badu, says the recently released ECG app for online purchase of electricity has received very high patronage from consumers since its introduction. The ECG app, launched last month, is part of government's effort to digitize the economy as it works towards a cashless economy. There's more in the following report.
Known as ECG Power, the mobile application is designed to make the purchase of electricity bills and payments of bills more convenient for customers of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Users of smartphones can download the app from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to enjoy the service, whereas users of non-smartphones can dial *226# and follow the prompts to enjoy the service. Speaking to Joy Business, Managing Director of ECG said the new app has received massive patronage since its introduction.
People are enjoying the app very well. We have about 3.8 million customers. 2.1 customers are postpaid, which is credit meters. we have 1.7 million customers who are prepaid meters. But out of the 1.7, we have 700,000 customers who have smart meters, and they are enjoying very well. And those who doesn't have the smart meters are also enjoying them by using the USSD *226#, which is very good. As we see right now, our purchase has increased. People are using the app very well.
The ECG boss also added a new digital platform for easy application and registration for services will be introduced soon.
We are trying to also go online, whereby if you apply for service, you don't have to go to our service centers. You can stay in the comfort of your house and then apply online, make payment, and later on, the last thing you see is somebody in your house plugging in the meter for you.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
Meanwhile, electricity consumers in the Ashanti region may have to wait for 2 more weeks to see improvements in power supply from the current interruptions in Kumasi and some other communities. A fire outbreak at Abuabu Dagomba line last month caused the collapse of a power pylon, resulting in some cuts at some suburbs, including Ridge and the airport roundabout area. Here's a report by Love FM's Kwesi Deborah.
Abu and his friend Mohammed have 2 days to complete plastering of this 10-unit bathhouse. They have similar jobs in other parts of this enclave. The Valentine Inferno reduced these structures to ashes.
That very day, I loot about 500 Ghana cedis things, provisions.
Not only bathhouses and wooden sheds were affected. A high-tension power pylon came crashing down and left many residents in darkness.
Papa, this is my fridge.
Officials of ECG have been inspecting work on the reconstruction of the pylon.
And make sure that our engineers are always around the clock working hard to be able to restore power. So power cuts, yes, you cannot really say that power will be on 100%. And that is why we have indices that we even follow. The PURC give us indices that we make sure that we fall within the indices. So our reliability is very key to us, and we try as much as possible to make sure that we provide them with reliable source of power. As for power cut, yes, we admit there's going to be some power cut. I will try as much as possible to limit it or restore power as quickly as possible when there's a power cut.
For Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
That'll be all for business for now. I'm back after 8 p.m. with more business news, but the news continues after the break.
Now, more than 24 hours after the deadly accident on the Kintampo Road, only the corpse of the driver of the Boku-bound bus has been identified by relatives. He has since been buried according to Islamic tradition. The failure by families to claim the bodies is said to have brought the hospital's morgue under intense pressure, with mortuary attendants lamenting the stench is becoming unbearable, especially due to the lack of chemicals to treat them.
Nkayenya ayibia betumi a boy ho ban wo ho ate say pampan ni we nyina nkayenya chemicals bi yetumi nya chemicals bi.
We would appreciate if authorities provide us with chemicals to fumigate the morgue. The stench emanating from the morgue is unbearable and it's a threat to our very existence here.
Control sa yimi nyina nka yebe.
Bodies do do send the bar
31.
Send on my befa.
Out of the 31 bodies, only one has been taken.
Obusiafo no biba anapa binu ba ha. Omunu se omubusia no wo ho. Na omuba no mbehunu se ehisa no omu ahunu se omunipa ni.
The few relatives that came in were unable to identify the burned bodies. We want government to step in.
Omu atimi ahunu se omunipa ka ho anase sanya. Na ono nim se nipa no kaka no na ohunu se ni de ni intina waka no sa no.
Okay. Eti eba na say ya mono how be na rebrem.
Hey, je how ka say bre cho say government and government funding sign too much. Say you be and also ever da. Just a government run a say the obey na etimia free so na yeso ya home.
The MC of the area, Michael Sarkodie for meanwhile says all unidentified corpses will be buried in mass graves if they are not collected in 2 weeks.
Today, MISEC met and we deliberated on the issues, and what the conclusion that we came to was and is that we give about a week or two opportunity for the people or for those who have lost their loved ones to come see if they can identify them. And so we are not in a haste, we are not in a rush to do it. I know it's posing problems for and to the facility, but I'm sure they will all bear with us that under the circumstance, there's nothing we can do. Legal issues are involved here. That is to say, if you don't use the right procedures, the right steps to deal with the issue, some people will come later to say that if you had allowed them a bit of time or some time, they could have come identify their bodies. And so that is the reason why we think that we must not rush in having them buried in a mass burial fashion.
We're taking a break here now on Joy News Prime to bring you showbiz.
David Hintz of Steel Pulse, the lead singer of the band Steel Pulse. Yeah. So during a recent, press conference Shatter House organized for them, he was asked, to advise the, upcoming musicians if he has any advice for them. And he says, be original. But there's something about originality they need to know. Listen.
My advice is to be original. I've always believed that once someone has an original approach to their music, original approach to their sound, that they can happen. At the same time, I've watched artists over the years that have become too original in their sound, and because they sound too original, they tend to fade quicker because someone got it's a sound that was so unique that they did not know how to vary that uniqueness. So that's very important as well, where one could know how to jump and bob and weave in between and pick up and continue with their originality. But when they're too far removed in their originality, it can also become counterproductive. So one's got to be mindful of that. Dedication to your craft and humbleness, because a lot of acts as well, when they come on board, they forget that, on the way up, you're going to see the same people on the way down. And ego kicks in, especially when it comes to us as a people. There's something about us where we got to be wearing our wealth on ourselves as opposed to being humble. And listen.
All right, so that was David Hintz of Steel Pulse.
Mixed reactions to claims by the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Osei Koto Efree, that food prices have reduced significantly in the last 3 years. Speaking at the Minister's Meet the Press series, the sector minister said prices are attributed to a successful implementation, or the reduction in prices are attributed to a successful implementation of the Planting for Food and Jobs policy. But some traders and consumers who have been speaking with Joy News' Henry Kwesi Bedu have views contrary to that of the minister.
The Planting for Food and Jobs policy was in 2017 launched to support the country's dwindling agriculture, especially that of smallholder farmers. The impact 3 years down memory lane, according to the government, is abundant foodstuff, which has reduced the price of food.
Our own statistics more than confirm the fact that in the 3 years of the program, the success rate has been tremendous. Those of you who go to the markets in Accra would confirm that the budget that you use to spend in the markets on food has considerably reduced, although the females amongst us may not have told your husbands that the budget is now overdrawn. But that is what it is, really. And the evidence is very clear.
The Malamata market is one of Accra's biggest foodstuff markets, where most of produce cultivated locally are sold. Auntie Julie and Abena Boatema are both traders here. For 15 years, they have sold vegetables and plantain here respectively.
Not all the food prices are low. Some of it you compare to the past 3 years, it seems better. But with the tomato, it's up now. When we look at some foodstuffs like plantain and cassava, because most of the time at this time, the price goes higher than it is now. But with the tomato, the price has gone higher than we expected. Normally, it's after Easter that it goes higher as we are buying it now. Yeah. But this time, it has gone higher earlier than we expect. When it comes in abundance, it comes low. But if it is in scarce, we don't have it at the same price.
This time, we turn brody. Se se body ano. Osen kafuna kase bibia onemre. Se body ano tamwa. Emu asesa. Pese ekọ kakra. Epeni si na body ano na ho ya edi. Se de ne bo no ekọ soro kakra. Nso to de ne bo fo me de kuta 1 cedi kura benya bi. 2 cedi benya bi. Na se no 2 cedi benya mum. Bia bonya ba akwa na mienu 2 cedi. Se akase we ni se ni 5 cedi. And I 4, I can say 4, 5 cedi.
Godfred is the owner of a restaurant here at Accra and at the market to get some food stuff. We follow him to buy some tomato, okra, and some garden eggs. His experience is also contrary to that of the minister.
I would say not really. Like, it goes up and down. It has its seasons. You know, some days it's high, some days it's low, some days it's okay. That's from what my experience has been. From what I've seen, the other market has gone up. But CMB, Accra, yeah, it's going up. It's going up there. Right. So, I mean, I can't really say I agree because it goes up, it goes down. You know, it's not stable. I think it has its seasons. You know, like when it's rainy season, it might go down or it might go up. You know?
Those who spoke to us speak for many other traders who share the same sentiment. Prices of foodstuff are mainly season-based. For Joy News, Henry Kwesi-Bedus reports.
Policy think tank Imani Africa is warning of massive chaos and disruption during the December 7 polls should the Electoral Commission push through with its plans to create a new register. Imani argues that the introduction of a new biometric system anywhere in the world creates massive problems, indicating that 2012 elections recorded 35% failure due to the introduction of the biometric system. Vice President of Imani Africa, Bright Simmons, insists procuring new biometric voter management systems for the 2020 polls would affect the integrity. He is also challenging the EC's claim that the cost of procuring new BVMs would be cheaper than refurbishing the existing kit. He spoke at a news conference.
The argument that the system is so old that if you try and refresh it, it will cost more is not true. In fact, if you try to refresh the existing system, you try and refurbish it, buy a few new ones, and take out only the ones that are truly broken, you will not spend more than $15 million. And if you try and did a registration of only those who have turned 18, you will not spend more than $20 million. Why? It is very simple. You will register about 2 million new people. Anybody who will try and convince you that it doesn't cost more doesn't have any regard for the truth. End of story. And we'll move on and say, is it possible that the actions of the EC can now go beyond losing money and start to affect the quality of our elections? Some of you may say that is more important to me because democracy is expensive, so maybe we should just spend a little bit more and get better quality. In addition to cost, there's also risk, and particularly the risk that because of their actions, the elections you are going to have, not even not this year, secondly, the year after, may be far less quality and stable than what you've had before. It's the risk factor of newness, new things. New things tend to be more problematic. What do I mean by that? The existing system that we've had it for long enough that we've learned to use it very well. If you go and buy a new system and you don't install and implement it properly, you can create more problems. So our argument is that the risk of the new platform, re-registering everybody, is far more than using a system that has delivered so many elections since 2012. And our first piece of evidence, using the Observer data report, Imani has mined each and every one of those reports and studied reports about breakdowns in polling stations. And we find out in 2012, when we first implemented this biometric solution, 33% of polling stations had problems. In fact, if you remember, in 2012, in some situations, it was so bad that we postponed the election for one more day. Remember that time? Yeah. It's the only time it has happened, the only time it has ever happened, because it was a brand new system.
He also accused the elections governing body of unhealthy practices, including rigging the tender process to suit what he describes as a worst bidder to provide a new system.
They published the tender in April 2019. Some people came, some of the best companies in the world, they said, oh, we'll do this for you, we'll do this for you, and we'll charge this amount. They easily looked at all of it and said, for some reason, we don't like what we are seeing, and then they canceled the tender. Then they reissued it again in August. The same set of people came and different vendors came. They said, we'll do this for you, we'll do this for you, and we'll charge this amount. It went on till around December, 4 months of evaluation. Then the committee settled on some people. The EC also started writing to the committee saying, we like these companies. These are tender. We like these companies. We think these are the companies that should go. Eventually, they managed to get some 4 companies through and then send it to the Public Procurement Authority. But they had strong-armed the members of the tender committee to the point where the chairman of that committee was not willing to have his name associated with the process. So the EC got angry, set up a whole new committee, started the tender all over again, starting on 10th January 2020. On 13th January, they met to establish their term of reference. On 17th, they invited the companies to come back. On 18th, they held the demonstrations and the technical evaluation. And then on 19th, because they are magical and they are greatest geniuses in the world, they already have the winner. $72 million, carry and go. But what are the people that lost and why did they lose and things like that? So we started reading the document. They said, oh, the companies that lost, there was one that was very good, called Smartmatic. But as for this company, we're going to do some research about them, and they have some reputational issues. One of them was that in Philippines, the president of the Philippines was angry with them and the electoral commission of that country. And the attorney general said he will even do investigations. So when we look at that, we are suspicious of their track record. We said, okay, let's look at the one that actually won, a company called Thales. This company is a French company. We found out that in 2004, 2005, the company was blacklisted by the World Bank globally for corruption. We started digging. It's like a pattern. This is a company that today, it's under investigation in South Africa for bribing President Jacob Zuma and his people. This is a company that's under an active investigation today, has been found guilty after a proper procedural effort in South Africa. This is a company that in Gabon was more or less run out of that country by NGOs because they went to corrupt the electoral process there.
Meanwhile, he wants the Public Procurement Authority to probe the tender process. You're watching Joy News Prime. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a bit. Chairman of the Sogakope South District Security Council says police in the area are up to task to deal with crime despite the inadequate numbers. This follows the murder of the assembly member for the area early this month, then subsequent calls by residents for mass police transfers and a restructuring of operations of the service there. Emmanuel Agama says the assembly is working overtime to ensure the concerns of the residents are addressed. Komla Adom and Fred Kwame Asare have been to the area to assess the situation.
It was one of the major concerns of residents of Sogakope, a community which has been in the news since the murder of Assembly member for the area, Marcus Ajahli. The people were up in arms over what they describe as rising insecurity following a spate of robberies and attacks.
We also want to see that there is a reinforcement of the police And if possible, the military should be called in, because we realize that security has become so porous that it is giving a field day to the armed robbers to come in, operate, and leave at will.
It culminated in a free-for-all confrontation between the residents and the police at the police station. 3 people sustained gunshot wounds after being hit by stray bullets from the police during the disturbances, which also saw the residents pelt the station with stones.
They got angry, amassed themselves here, and then were pelting stones at officers in the office, and then they were threatening to burn down the place. So in the process, the police tried to disperse them off, and then gave some warning shot where we heard that 3 people got injured in the process.
Here is a result of a mass action by the youth. The stones that the young people and the residents here pelted into this compound smashed into the windshield of one of the police vans there. And that was not the only vehicle that was affected. There's also a stationary vehicle here, a salon car, which has its windshield smashed as well. Another one here, and then another police patrol vehicle there. So at least 4 vehicles in all were affected by the mass action of a resident on Monday. Also, some of the glasswares of a police station were also affected by the situation. This resident, who works close to the police station, saw it all unfold.
So the regional minister Bonano Aponuna Yuto, it I cover police station like at the Toronto. So you reckon Martin blowy and man guys over Tanjuku Pokomi Segota Juto Total barrier. So me legi afi o gaba tojo tire legi o ko tire mo do pe na jinye so bi fa famole ko tojo tire mo ko tire va gbosun leji ko me didi ko mi po bi amotan epe dada so pe dada ma ko o ta pe dada gba o le down ra police station. So police on have a job we have no to down le am.
Okay. So all he's been saying is that the regional minister was supposed to have met the youth of the area here, but then the venue was changed. The youth thought that there was some attempt not to speak to them by the regional minister, and so that sparked, the anger and, burning of tires at the barrier, also some burning of tires here at the police station. Yet after 12, BTF feel enojoji.
After 12, Makatangi Manya now. So now crying crime about Pobino, and you have one fear. I don't have to have been a shop opposite police station. Yema Tuvo, Yema Joe, some do mosque la. Be Navy so bona. So me se be Navy so vala. Ye na over the over woman over na guys so kaka. We ba na gala be na to Navy so no vala ya to be manya po bangba makra.
So he says he was terrified by the situation, so he had to lock up his shop amidst the confrontation. So he left the area. On his way out of here, he got to the mosque and he realized that the soldiers were making their way here. And so it was their intervention that calmed situations and calmed tensions here that day. The residents are calling for, among others, a review of a security arrangement in the area. District Chief Executive Officer for South Town, Emmanuel Agama, admits the numbers may be a challenge.
Requested for about 30 personnel, and then not all were brought, but those that are around per my, thinking they are up to task and they can perform, creditably.
However, he says the available personnel have been up to task.
The past robberies that took place, they made arrests and the cases are in courts. There were no cases that the police couldn't solve in the area. The one that happened at Tademe is in court now. And then some other that took place where the robber raped a nurse and then shot at some people. He was arrested. Generally, the police were up to task.
Meanwhile, 4 persons are being interrogated by the Volta Region Police over the murder of the assembly member, and 2 police officers from the Sugakope station are being probed after a rifle went missing at the station on March 7. Komla Adom and Fred Kwame Asari's report from Sugakope in the Volta region.
The Korle Bu Teaching Hospital is appealing to the general public to help identify an accident victim who was brought to the hospital 3 weeks ago. The victim, who is said to have been knocked down by a commercial vehicle and abandoned at Teshin, was brought to the hospital by a Good Samaritan. Chief Senior Officer at the Surgical Department of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, Emilia Okai, says the patient has been treated and ready to be discharged, but his family is yet to be located since he's unable to speak.
By someone and left at our ER, so he was attended to. Okay. When he was brought in, he was unconscious, so he was named unknown. But after he was seen to and improved, so we could not get the relations. You know, the ER is a very busy place, so there was a need to move him to the department that took care of him. And so he is a neuro case, but was discharged there. Since we couldn't get the relation, we had to look for a place for him, so we admitted him to the department, and we are taking care of him.
How long has he been here?
We took him up from the 20th of last month, that's 20th of February. So since 20th of February, he was moved from the ER to the surgical department. Initially, when he came, he was not speaking, but as time goes on, you know, with head injury, at times they seem to improve a little. He tried to murmur something, we couldn't get it. He has mentioned his name once, and at times when you talk to him, he responds once. Further questions, he doesn't say anything.
So what is going to be the next thing?
A moment when we took over and we found out he was unknown, the hospital authority was informed, social workers came in, and so we are liaising with the social workers, and they are going to look for a place for him, and they will take him up from there till we get the relations.
St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School is making a return to the National Championship of the National Science and Maths Quiz after picking the first slot at the Greater Accra Regional Qualifiers. The cantonment-based school pulled 39 points to beat off competition from the 4 contenders. In 2019, they crashed out of the Nationals in a keenly contested 1-8 fixture. But the 2013 champions are poised to correct their mistakes and run an impressive campaign this year. There's more in the following report.
It was the first contest of the Greater Accra Regional Qualifiers. All 5 schools were desperate to book their place at the National Championship. For the likes of Osu Presec, Tema Presec, Accra High School and Christian Methodist SHS, it was time to end their drought at the Nationals. But their effort was not enough to tame the 2013 champions, St. Thomas Aquinas SHS. The Bebe boys left no stone unturned, dominating almost all the round.
Find the current supplied by the battery when a 2.5 ohm resistor is, yes.
Current is 3.0 ampere.
That is correct. The expression x minus 1 and the expression x plus 2 are factors of x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Find the third factor.
X minus 3.
That is correct. So at the end of the second round, Osu Presec had 2 points. Tema Presec had 6 points. Christian Methodist had 8 points. Accra High School had 9 points. And maintaining their lead, St. Thomas Aquinas had 34 points.
They, however, failed to unravel any of the 4 riddles in the final round of the contest.
Historically, I was a branch of botany. Yes, St. Thomas Aquinas.
Immunology.
That is wrong. Yes, Osu Presec.
Mycology.
That is correct.
Osu Presec was successful in picking 2 of the riddles, whilst Christian Methodist SHS and Tema Presec managed to pick 1 each.
So at the end of the contest, Tema Presec had 14 points. Christian Methodist had 16 points. Osu Presec had 19 points, and Accra High had 20 points. Winning the contest with 39 points is St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School. St. Thomas Aquinas, congratulations to you. You have qualified for the national championships.
Though not impressed with the scores, the St. Thomas Aquinas SHS contestants are confident of dotting the I's and crossing the T's before the national event.
This year, I expect nothing but the best and a lot of surprises, very good surprises for that matter, because we are coming in with fire, a lot of fire. We made a mistake, and the mistake was relaxing. We saw we were in the lead, and instead of pressing on, we decided to relax to get more clues to answer the questions, and this proved rather unfortunate for us.
Achimota School sent St. Thomas Aquinas packing in last year's contest at the 1/8 stage, but the team lead for the boys say they will adopt a new strategy to deal with any school they meet.
Today it has been very interesting and then more keen because we've not been in the regionals for some time now, and so we're expecting to have such challenges that we had today. And so I believe it's a strategy I'm putting in place, and I'm okay with the win. I'm much interested to see them win, not making high score. So I'm not so impressed. However, per the strategy that is in place, I'm very happy. Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't go well last year as we planned or as we prepared for. However, as the competition went on, there were certain challenges we had during the round 1 and round 2, and we made sure that we work on those problems. And because it's a secret and it's part of the weapons we are using this year, I wouldn't want to say much about it. However, this year we are more prepared, and the regional is a test of some of the skills we have, and then I'm glad they've made it. And we trust that they will make it in subsequent contests ahead of them.
I tell my mother that she will see me no more. If Father is great as I tell you the truth. Every great as boy is fighting for his life. Go, mama, 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 go.
Here's a full complement of results from the 8 Greater Accra regional qualifiers.
to business. My name is Sandra Esenam Apeno. Now, it has emerged that Kupia of Korea Customs Service in 2015 was contracted by the government, the then government, to undertake an audit of the customs management systems created by the Ghana Community Network Services Limited, GCNet, at the ports and borders. During the audit, even though GCNet did not provide their data dictionary and infrastructural plan to Kupia, their reports recommended a total change in the ports management system, a proposal GCNet rejected as government moves to cancel GCNet's contract, which ends in 2023. My colleague Norvan Akwa-Hayford engages Deputy General Manager of GCNet, Carl Saki, on why they refused to hand over their data dictionary to Kupia.
I remember when we were written to that Unipass was coming to interview or coming to carry out an audit. And the first thing we wrote was that Unipass, okay, the Kupia is actually the same, so the Korean counterpart of GCNet.
Yeah, Korean Customs Agency.
Yeah, no, they have the Kupia. The Unipass is the software. Kupia is the IT arm of, which is the same as GCNet. So their job is basically to do what GCNet is doing. So they focus on technology. And so first we raise an issue that that entity can't carry out this in an impartial manner because they've already been trying to make overtures to come into Ghana. So we raised that issue. GCNet actually formally wrote to government that...
Well, you were aware that they were interested in...
Yeah, we were very much aware. And so we wrote that report.
You thought that it was a cover-up by the government then to
I
get them to understand what your system is?
Yeah, so they wrote those reports. They came up with many issues because they came to us and we were very blunt that, look, some of the stuff you're looking for, data dictionary, on what basis should I give data dictionary, which is like the blueprint of my database, to you? How do you give network architecture to you? You know, those are things that you can't give out to anybody because they are proprietary stuff. Those are stuff that make your system work. You know, so we couldn't give that to them. You understand? And so from my perspective, the stuff they wrote in the report were flawed. They wrote many stuff. Later on, we got to see some of the reports because a lot of the things that they talked about, actually, and to date, sometimes we hear those things, were not true.
What did they exactly talk about that you were against?
So they talked about the fact that the ministries, departments, and agencies were not issuing permits electronically, which is not true. They talked about the fact that the system did not support paperless functionality, which is clearly not true.
We saw paperless being implemented by the Vice President. I mean, the big fanfare, the talk about let's go paperless.
Yeah, but then
it didn't exist before then?
Yes, it did. Paperless had been implemented in Takrady way back in 2012, 2011, 2012. I think the system was designed to be paperless right from day one. What you needed to do was somebody to champion paperless, to get people to change their way of doing business. But the system has been designed to be paperless right from day one. And so what the Vice President did was basically to say, look, we have all these systems, and which is what a project champion does. Say, look, I'm going to harness the technology we've deployed, make sure it works. And that's what the Vice President did. And so we didn't change any systems. No, we didn't change any systems. All we did was to be able to make sure that what the Vice President did, we forced people to do it. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So those things, and so if Kupia and Korea, they know the systems we work with are coming from Singapore. Singapore ease of doing business ranking actually is rated higher than Korea. Number 2, Korea is number 5. You can't tell me that they were going to give you an impartial review. That I really and I strongly said that, look, that thing was not partial.
When did you?
Management industry came under a lot of scrutiny with the revocation of licenses of 53 firms for several reasons. This exposed lapses and gaps in the regulatory and operational parts of the industry. One major issue that came to the fore was education of the market operators. Beyond this, how is the regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, ensuring players under its arm are shaping their skills, experience and competencies? That's the question we asked Deputy Director General Finance of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Abibio.
We're also looking at education of the market operators. So, for instance, as it stands now, they do the Ghana Stock Exchange course, and then they are in the markets operating perpetually. Yeah. What we are going to introduce, there's a new entity, Ghana Investments and Securities Institute, that will take over these courses. And so that's going to enhance the curriculum. because beyond your investment professionals, now you have anti-money laundering officers, you have your risk professionals, you have your custodians and your trustees. They all need to appreciate their role in the space. And so we're going to have specialized training programs for all these players. So there's going to be a broader range of training available in the capital markets. We're also going to introduce continuous professional education. So their existing operators will still have to go through at least some minimum level of hours to ensure that they are current with the rules that we develop, with developments in the marketplace, and also they're able to appreciate the dynamics between the regulatory side and the operational side, key things they need to be aware of. So those are two areas. The last area is that for the high level, where some of the issues we face were governance-related issues. And so we've gone into a partnership. The Ghana Stock Exchange signed an MOU with the London Stock Exchange. And part of it is really to build capacity to enable us to play on a world-class level. Because again, government's aim is to make Ghana a financial hub. Now that means that your local players also have to be robust. They have to be strong. They need to have an appreciation of what the competition is.
Ghana in the next 3 months is likely to experience shortage and increases in the prices of spare parts if the coronavirus disease is not contained. Co-chairman of the Abosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association, Clement Watson, who spoke to the Ghanaian Times, said spare parts dealers in the country could no longer travel to buy spare parts due to the outbreak of the coronavirus disease there.
Crude oil made a slight gain today to sell at $37.09 a barrel. Gold, however, made a loss to trade at $1,659.70 an ounce. The commodity news update is up next. That will be all for business tonight with me, Sandra S. Sinam Afeno, and the small news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. And let me remind you that the Multimedia Group is celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. We say thank you so much for watching and keep watching Joy News.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports here on Prime with me, Obre Kuampa, and Valencia as well. That's been playing behind closed doors. Valencia currently losing 2-1, and that means that Atalanta are leading by 6-2 on Akike. It all seems done and dusted for Valencia, but it's the Champions League and certainly anything can happen. We'll still keep you up to date on the match results as we do go on the bulletin. But let's now talk about some boxing news, where coach of the Black Bombers, Ofori Asare, he says that he believes in the future of the Black Bombers despite only 2 boxers qualifying from the team in the Olympic qualifiers that happened in Dakar, Senegal a week ago.
Future is bright because some of them, comparing to even the boxers that defeated them, some of them have been to the Olympics 3 times. Some of them have been around for long, and these are boxers, apart from Suleiman Tete, who has been to the Olympics before and is going again. They are all new. Some of them are even having this tournament as their first big competition, and they were able to excel to that level. So that means even this tournament is some kind of training for them for the next other tournament or the next other qualifier. So that we are not getting this opportunity to go for competitions like this. This competition, our boxers, some of them, they were within 9 days, they were fighting about 4 or 5 fights. They fight, they win, they have to fight again. Even when when at the semi-finals when they lost, they have to come back and fight again. You see, so the training that they got there is very, very, very good for them, and it has built them because nothing like that has happened to them before, and they were able to cope to this level. So it is a chance, or it is exposure that will enable them to do well in their future tournaments.
Well, that was the latest news on the Black Bombers. There would still be a couple more chances for the other team members as well to gain qualification to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. But let's now talk about the Ghana Premier League, which will see match day 14 resume this midweek and has some interesting fixtures coming along this week as well. With the headline fixture, the first one, the Manchester Derby between Heart of Oak and Accra Great Olympic, who rules Accra, as these two sides will be meeting tomorrow at the Accra Sports Stadium at 7 p.m. We also have other fixtures including Ashanti Gold versus Bechem United. Brekum Chelsea look to bounce back against Legon Cities, and then we also see Kerala United playing the Busian Drafts will be facing King Faisal. Mediama host 11 Wonders, and Wafa at Sogakope would be hosting table-topping side Aduana Stars. Tomorrow fixtures, and this will take place on Thursday, March 12th. Liberty Professionals would be hosting Inter-Allies as Asante Kotoko, who also joined top of the Premier League with 24 points, welcome Elmina Sharks, who themselves are currently unbeaten in their last 5 games, winning 4 out of those 5 and drawing just 1. From the Ghana Premier League, we move on to the Women's FA Cup, and we see the fixtures for the Southern Zone. Holy Royals would be welcoming Army Ladies, Socrates Ladies would be playing Faith Ladies, Valued Ladies, travel to play Anglo Ladies, and Blessed Ladies would be hosting Championship side Hazakes Ladies. Ideal Ladies face Immigration FC. Lady Strikers host Soccer Intellectuals, with Sea Lions playing Police Ladies. Samaria Ladies also would be playing against Halifax Ladies. And that would be the women's football in terms of their FA Cup. And now let's talk about some rugby news, where winners of the 2019 and 2020 Ghana Rugby Championship have received trophies and medals at a special ceremony in Accra. Our Joy Sports Asari Bediako was at the event and came through with this report.
Dansoman Hurricanes are the newly crowned champions of the 2019-2020 Ghana Rugby Club Championship after defeating Griffins RFC in a highly competitive grand finale. At a ceremony in Accra, the new champions received medals and a trophy. Griffins were also rewarded for their impressive performance. In the women's category, Conquerors emerged winners. Griffins finished as runners-up. Hurricanes finished third. Outstanding teams in the 2018-2019 season were also given medals. In the men's category, Conquerors conquered all, with Hurricanes finishing as runners-up. Griffins were third. In the women's category, Conquerors emerged champions. Hurricane and Cosmos Lions finished second and third respectively. President of the Ghana Rugby Football Union, Herbert Mensah, was full of praise for the outstanding teams in the Ghana Rugby Club Championship.
Many of you have played extraordinary rugby over the last 2 years. There are some of you who hadn't played rugby before a year ago, who have entered into the national team for the ladies. There are some who are playing in the national team today who a year ago had no even chance or thinking of playing in the national team. I sat with Steph watching us against Mauritius, and we won that based upon guts and determination, not on skill or necessarily ability. We've moved along beyond that, where we've beaten Botswana based upon strength, skills, power, and good tactical nuance, listening a little bit more to the coach. Since that time, Colin Osborne has donated a scrummaging machine that we've brought in, a Rhino machine, and we are making so much progress in such short spaces. Now we have Denver coaching you guys in terms of how to coach, and then providing training for Coach Dallas in particular, Black, and in Rafatu, to also be qualified to also be educators in the process, of which they will have to keep their standard at a very high level.
Before we do go, let's get the latest from the Champions League games, and RB Leipzig are leading Tottenham Hotspur by 2-0 and 3-0 on aggregate there, as Atalanta are defying all odds and are just 45 minutes away for their first ever quarter-final appearance in the UEFA Champions League. But that wraps it up for the sports here on Prime with me, Oreko Ampofo. Do have a fantastic evening.
All right, so time for Journalist Interactive. Here's where we get on to social media and get to read some of the comments you have posted on the issues that we have raised on our Facebook page and social media pages. So we will shortly be seeing some of the posts that we're going to be interacting with, or you have been interacting with, and get to share some of those comments with you. All right, so it has to do with the president suspending temporarily all foreign travels for all public officials. Let's get to read some of the comments underneath that. So we have Smith saying, finally the traveling has stopped. For the first time, our president will stay in Ghana small. Great coronavirus. Papa says God indeed works in mysterious ways to keep this extravagant government in check to save our public purse and the economy as a whole. Coronavirus, we are Metro. And Zach says, you seem to be thinking more about the COVID-19 than our roads that are killing more dozens every week. Imre says, after you've traveled more than 14 days, you are now pretending to fight the disease. Mayor says, good move. The decision should be encouraged and enforced and should live by example by not traveling overseas himself. Ernest says, possible the virus is now in the Jubilee House. Nate says, touring president, continue traveling, wasting poor taxpayers' money, enjoying all over the world. And Imbre says, you should ban all flights from affected areas. Well, that's an issue that has also come up. And Kumar says, nice reportage, a very decent picture. And like what you saw on a certain portal. Okay, PK Austin says he will be very bored. Apart from traveling around the world, I don't know what other job his presidency will do for Ghana. And Ziblim says, look, Accra to Tamale have to be a double road, not one way. Stephen says, we thank coronavirus for putting an end to its extravagant foreign travel. Maoli says, something must stop a man. Thank you. Bernard thinks it's a huge saving for the country. All right. Okay, so those are the comments we had to, some of the comments that you posted on the president's decision to ban or suspend all public travel or travel by government officials, as it is. All right, so the other story has to do with water poverty, which is a story that we looked at in this bulletin. So we have some of the comments. Christy says, visit Saboba and see how many people are drinking water with animals. Where's the MP and the DC for the district? God is watching the politician for deceiving the poor people for vote, and after the win, run to cities and leave the poor people in suffering places. Weezy says, when you have a government shouting and hitting its chest, then it's using majority of crude oil revenue to implement free SHS to the neglect of providing access to potable water. You must know that the nation is cursed by God. Cure this curse in the December election. All right, so that will be it for Journalist Interactive. And that will be it for the bulletin. My name is Israel. Thank you very much for watching, and you have a good night.